Okay.
die de verkeerde handen valt.
I'm going to try to get you very involved in these shiurim, and I want you to respond as much as possible, and I want you to think carefully about what I have to say, but it obviously needs a little bit of an introduction. I have been making notes and observations for the lectures which I'm going to give for the last half a year at least, if not longer. And there's only one problem: I never got them together. And that is purely because I have enormous time limits at the moment. As I mentioned before, our academy is under great financial problems, and I tried to solve them, and that takes an enormous amount of time. And that means that I have not worked things out to the extent that I would have liked to. But there is an advantage to that as well, and that is that I will let my brain just go. And you just respond whenever you want to respond, or when I ask you to respond. I'm going to say a lot of things I probably don't agree with. And that means to say that I have been thinking about these matters. I'm not sure if they're right or if they're wrong. But I think they are important to be discussed. They have to be put on the table, and it needs our careful attention. So anything what I'm going to say, you are allowed to quote me on it afterwards. First of all, be so kind to do this properly. Secondly, don't take this to mean that this is my personal stand for sure on these matters. I am not sure about most matters, and I hope my whole life to continue like that. I have an incredible aversion for people who know the truth or coming to tell me the truth, because I don't think we get anywhere if we are making up our minds. I don't want to make up my mind. What I want is to ask questions, first of all, to myself, and I want to ask the questions to you, and to tell me what you think of it. And doubt, for me, is the most important quality of life. I live my whole life in doubt. That has nothing to do with the question that I feel fully committed to Halacha, but I have a lot of things to say about Halacha which are again very unconventional. You have already heard something of that here and there over the time that we have been speaking, and I will try to emphasize this more because I feel that we are in tremendous need of rewriting the Jewish tradition. This has nothing to do with reform, this has nothing to do with the conservative movement. I'm not sure it has got anything to do with Orthodox Judaism, but it definitely has something to do about what Yahadut is all about. Point of departure for a moment is this, and I'm not saying this because this is not a matter of tremendous discussion, and that is that I start from the point of view that the Torah, as we know it, is min hashamayim, is from heaven. Now this is an enormous topic in itself, and we have once had a symposium on this a few years ago. In the meantime, what I said there, I've also changed my mind about in radical ways, but that I will share with you another time. But I want you to know that this is the point of departure, because otherwise everything is up into nowhere land and everything is open to discussion, and we just are not able in that way to run this course. For the rest, everything to me is completely open to debate. I sometimes will take a little bit of a traditional stand on this matter. At other times, I will definitely not do so. I'm reminded of a very beautiful conversation which took place between Wolfgang Pauli, who was one of the great scientists of our days, a physicist, who once gave a lecture at Columbia University, and Niels Bohr was in the audience. And Niels Bohr was one of the other very great scientists of his days, and afterwards Pauli went up to Niels Bohr and said to him, "You probably think that the things I just stated are crazy," speaking about physics. And Bohr answered, "Yes, I do. Unfortunately, they are not crazy enough." And that is what I want to speak about. So I'm going to say a lot of crazy things. Again, not because I believe that they are true, but I think they need to be discussed. And what I want you to do, therefore, is to respond. I basically would like, in some respect, I know that doesn't always work, but I want you to give the lecture, and I'm just a facilitator here to try to get you out of your box, let's say, and try to see what you have to say about it. You help me by this tremendously for one reason, and that is that I'm writing a book on this. I don't know where this book is going and how it will end, and if it will ever end. But observations you make are important to me because I can use them in my book or rethink things in the book about the topics which I would like to discuss. On a personal level, I think it is important to mention this because there is no philosophy without a personal story behind it. Many of you know I come from a mixed marriage. Father Jewish, mother not Jewish. I converted when I was 16 years old. I've told this to many of you already, I think by now. My mother was very Jewish in her way. She was raised in a Jewish family, but she was basically coming from a Christian background and from Christian parents. And at the moment I'm making a documentary. This is one of the reasons why I was just in Holland, about my ways towards Yiddishkeit. And the person who also plays a very important role in this is my brother, who did not convert, and with whom I'm very close. He's 2 years younger than I am. He's a dentist, but in the meantime he has been retired. And I asked him, why not making a documentary? People had asked us actually to do so, had asked me to do so for years, but there was never any money available for this. But now there is some money for it. And to tell the story why I went one way and why he went another way. To my surprise, I found that my brother, who is 60 years old, I'm 63 years old, on many occasions, although I felt it at the time, I was 16 when I converted, was very close to do the same thing as well. And he told me this time on the documentary, and I wanted this to be recorded, that one of the reasons why he didn't want to do this is because he was afraid, and I think he was absolutely right about it, that he would constantly be under my supervision. Meaning to say that if he would make a mistake, halachically or whatever it is, then I would be the one to straighten him out, and he didn't want to live this kind of a life. But that on the other side, he is a deep believer. If there's any religion to him, then it is no doubt the Jewish tradition. He was married to a non-Jewish woman from whom he is now divorced, but for many years they run a kosher household. Also both of them were not Jewish halachically. Purely my mother also converted a few months before I got married, and they wanted to make sure that my parents could eat at their place, and therefore they had a kosher household till much later in life. They decided not to continue this. This is a long story I won't go into now. They remarried in the meantime, and one of the things he told me lately was that an issue which I think is an issue which needs to be discussed one day, and that is that he doesn't feel non-Jewish. He knows that he halachically is not Jewish, and when you get to the age where we are, you start to think about where do you want to be buried. Sure. And he struggles to